Welcome back to the Neighbors Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Tami Taunton is with us. She is the founder and president of a ministry here in Jacksonville, Florida called Hadassah's Hope. They do strip club ministry. So that is some serious work of the gospel, and her stories and the way she talks about it is so inspiring. And even if you're not called to specifically strip club ministry, whatever you're called to, her whole message is just to get up and go and do it. And so it's incredible. Hadassah's Hope, their mission is to reach and restore sexually exploited and trafficked women in the adult entertainment industry by sharing the hope and love of Jesus. We talk so much in the episode just about how meeting people right where they're at, not shoving the gospel down their throat, is the way that Jesus would do it, and loving them right where they are and building relationships, and how that translates to anyone really in any of our walks that you meet is not necessarily shoving the gospel down their throat right away, but just loving them and pursuing them and continuing to show up. But this ministry is not for the faint of heart, and the stuff that they've been through and continue to walk through is definitely challenging. And Tami, as she'll say, has to remind herself that this is the Lord's call in her life, and it's the Lord's doing of the fruit that's grown out of it. So this conversation is incredible. Before we get there, I want to just mention some of our corporate sponsors, and the first is Grounds of Grace. The next time you're looking for a great cup of coffee with a great local cause attached to it, make sure to check out Grounds of Grace Coffee Company here in Jacksonville. Grounds of Grace Coffee Company is the for-profit, they're nonprofit, sponsored by Grace, which has been serving in the Jacksonville murder capital 32209 for the past 6 years, fighting for the gospel to be delivered into some of the hardest communities in our city. Grounds of Grace is widely known for their popular lattes, shaken espressos, fun seasonal drinks, and their iced plant-based refreshers. Check them out on Instagram at Grounds of Grace Jax, that's Jax, or at one of their 5 locations in Jacksonville. This episode is also sponsored by Lay Construction. Lay Construction is a full-service general contractor specializing in commercial interiors. Whether your project is office, retail, hospitality, faith-based, or industrial, Lay Construction services all market types. The company is Jacksonville-based and dedicated to serving Northeast Florida by delivering the highest quality work in the industry. For any of your construction needs, Lay Construction is your team. Check out some of their completed projects on Instagram at lay_construction, and lay is spelled LAY_construction, or online at lay-construction.com. And just a reminder, it's lay-construction.com. Here's my conversation with Tami. Okay, well, welcome, Tami, to the Neighbors Podcast.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here. I knew you would dress fierce today. You're always dressed fierce. I even told you, hey, it's audio and video, so, come camera ready. You was like, I already planned my outfit. Or I don't remember what you said, but
I said, I'll come cute.
Yeah, I'll come cute. But yeah, your pants are so fabulous.
Thank you.
But you can't say where you got them because,
No.
Okay, you are just such a force in the kingdom, and I'm so excited that you're here to share with us about this incredible ministry that you started and just have grown over the years, and it's called Hadassah's Hope. And tell us just the story, like the background. How did you end up starting a strip club ministry?
I'd love to, because it is everything I thought I would never do. But isn't that how it works anyway? Yeah. God's just so good like that. So I went on a mission trip in 2015, and God just shook me to the core to see lost people like I had never seen before. And through that experience, I came home and knew that I wanted to do more, not necessarily overseas, but right here in our community. So I began to pray and ask the Lord to reveal to me what He would have me to do. I came across an article on strip club ministry, and that is kind of what landed us here today. We just began doing it. Had people over at my house and just said, hey, I know this is strange, this is weird, but this is what God's calling me to do. And partnering alongside with just friends. And Lindsay Almeida was one of the first people that I actually reached out to, and people to cook, people to pray, people to go, and one club at a time is how it all began.
So what was your life like before the mission trip? Like, were you already kind of serving this population, or what did your life look like?
So I was a stay-at-home mom, homeschool mom, and a pastor's wife. So I was always within the walls of the church and doing all the things that, people do in church, work in the nursery and take people meals and all those things. But I never got outside the walls of the church. And it wasn't until I went on a mission trip that God just gave me eyes to see lost people. Like, there's so much more. And, there's so much scripture on making disciples. And so I knew I had to do more. And so it wasn't necessarily that I had a heart specifically towards dancers, but they're lost and they're overlooked and they're marginalized. And most people write them off because they think this is what they chose to do. Little do they know it's the trauma that led them there. And there's a whole story that nobody wakes up and says, I want to be a stripper one day.
Do you feel like it's common or easy as a stay-at-home mom, especially a homeschool mom, to get caught up in a cycle of like that is all your energy and effort is focused towards?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was comfortable too.
Yeah.
But it was work, but it was very comfortable,
yeah.
But not outside the home.
Yeah.
And not outside the walls of the church.
What, we'll get into it and talk about the ministry itself, but what encouragement do you have for the stay-at-home moms, homeschool moms, who it's truly one of the hardest jobs. I watched both my sisters do it and several of my friends. And I joke Fridays I don't work, but Wes does work. And so that's my stay-at-home mom day. And by the end of the day, I'm like, seriously, when are you coming home? Like I only do it one day a week. So it's not a job for the faint of heart. What would be your encouragement for stay-at-home moms? And now, listen, tomorrow they don't need to open up a strip club ministry.
That's
Maybe
right.
they do.
Yeah.
But what would your encouragement be to them as they're in that season?
I feel like every season, depending on where you are in your season, get your kids involved. Find ways to be able to pull your children in so they see you living life on mission, whether it's going to a nursing home, making cards, taking fruit, whatever they allow you to bring, whether it is putting a meal together to go into the strip club. But having your children be a part of showing what it looks like to serve outside the church.
That's really good. I love that.
At really any age.
Yeah.
You can pull them in, start at a young age all the way up.
Yeah, no doubt. I was just thinking about that. We have a 3 and a 1-year-old, so the 1-year-old has no clue what's happening.
clue.
But the 3-year-old, she's very observant. She definitely is at the age where we've had conversations like, we got to start getting her outside this bubble. Like she needs to see that this is not all normal, And we have Night to Shine coming up, which is prom for people with special needs. It's one of the most incredible events. And I was just thinking about it. I was like, I think she needs to come see the red carpet. Like, I think she needs to come and just see it. Now, is there anything she can necessarily do? Like maybe she could like hand flowers to someone, there's not much she can do, but just seeing it and being exposed like to all different kinds of people. Like these things are just so good in the building blocks of our kids to form their worldview. I mean, I even think about like strip club ministry. Like, yeah, are they going to go in the club? Are our kids going to go in the clubs?
No.
I don't even know if they're allowed in. Probably
No.
not. No, but like, should they know about this group of people who there's trauma and hurt and pain, and should we expose them to that in some way? Like, yeah, that's really good for kids,
When they're age appropriate and
Sure.
they're able to understand, absolutely, being able to pull them in.
Yeah.
Like Night to Shine, like you said, even at 3, she's going to be in awe.
Yeah.
And you're just that next stepping stone to serving, right?
Right. Okay, so what was it like, I don't know, maybe for your husband or your friends when you're like, okay, I'm going from stay-at-home mom, homeschool mom, pastor's wife, and now I'm starting strip club ministry?
I mean, some people were a little, starstruck, like, what in the world? You're going to do what? My husband was my biggest cheerleader. He still is. He is my rock, and he supports me 110%, and he keeps me sane for the days I want to throw in the towel. So I'm thankful for that. So I feel like just through God's grace, he's put people around me to support me and hold me up. And, the people that were, not on board, they've seen me be consistent and they've seen me still with it. So they realize the need. And so they slowly on their own time have come around.
Yeah,
so that's been super cool.
There's always going to be that group of people
Yeah.
when you step out and do something like this, they're going to be the skeptics. It's going to take them having to see you do it for over time consistently to be like, okay, like you always have the early adopters
right.
who are like, oh, say less. I'm in.
Yeah.
You don't even have to tell me more, And then there's the ones, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think we need people like that who are going to ask questions and be a little more skeptical.
Reserved and skeptical.
Then it's almost like, then once they see you're serious about it, God's moving the fruit of it, then they'll be all into what you're doing because they've kind of seen the journey of it. Have you found that to be true?
Not only the journey of it, but the fruit of it.
Yeah.
That's what I love, because then they see, okay, this is not just her, having a wild hair and doing something crazy, right? This is her actually getting out there And even more so, watching what God's doing through Hadassah's Hope. I mean, it's a ministry that started off with 10 people that's grown to 530 something people now. And so it truly takes a village to be able to come alongside. And when you see God at work, you'll want to get behind it, right?
For sure.
And so it's nothing to do with me, even though they thought I was crazy, but just seeing the fruit of that and the fruit of the people coming alongside.
And anytime you start something like this or you step out, like, you're going to put the kindling around the fire. You're going to set up the systems and processes. You're going to call the places, but like only God can ignite the flame. And there's a lot of peace in that. There can be some scary parts of that because you really need God to show up if it's going to work. But there is definitely a peace about it. I find that it's not all on you, even though you are the driver of it and God's placed you there and given you the idea. It's really ultimately up to him to produce the fruit, which then makes it fun. You just get to sit back and, of course, work really hard, but then just watch him show off too.
Listen, I can look over my shoulder and just see evidence of God year by year, girl by girl. And that's what keeps me going because it's just so beautiful to see that type of fruit. And it's such more than just even in strip clubs. It is my staff. It is people that volunteer and getting to hear their stories and how their healing was born out of serving at Hadassah's Hope.
Yeah.
And so they had trauma in their lives, but how they've been able to serve and give back has produced this incredible healing in their lives.
Wow.
And so we call them little ripple effects. And so seeing those ripple effects, it's so much more than just dancers, right? Yeah. It's being able to touch so many different lives. And that is the best part. And it's just this drive inside of me that it's unexplainable. Like, it's like I said, it's outside my comfort zone, but it's like I can't stop it. It's this force inside of me that my husband's like, you can't work all the time. It's like, you can't help it. You know, you just can't help it.
Okay, so let's talk about it. What does Hadassah's Hope exist to do? And what are all the ways that you serve the population of dancers in strip clubs?
So we exist to share the hope and love of Jesus in strip clubs and also women that sell sex online. It's through our To Get Her outreach, which if you put the words together, it spells the word together, but we break it up to get her. Isn't that cool? Great
Love
stuff.
that.
I did not come up with that. So they're
We'll
smart. They're smarter than me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what we call it because we're literally reaching women online. And so that has been around. We've been doing that for about 16 months. And just in 10 months, we sent over 3,200 text. Wow. We've had women come in to our Hope Center that has been able to get resources and help and counseling and Bible study. Wow. So it's been a beautiful thing.
And so when you say you do strip club ministry, does that, I know the answer, but tell us, what does that literally look like week to week?
I'd love to. So we are in 13 strip clubs in Jacksonville and fixing to start another one next month. And we are in one club in Georgia. And that is literally week from week, a group of people coming together with a meal or gifts, depending on the club, for 2 to 4 people going inside the club, sharing the hope and love of Jesus. We go in there with no agenda. We're just there to love these women. They're just like me and you.
Sure.
You know, they just need Jesus. And they're moms. They've struggled. They walk through hard life and trauma. And we just be a friend to them. And our approach is relational because we don't front load the gospel. We don't go in there, you know, giving out Bibles. That comes through a relational approach. And we want them to know and to trust us to be able to invite them into conversation to share the gospel with them.
Beautiful. How many total strip clubs are there in Jacksonville?
15.
Oh, whoa, you're in almost all of them.
All of them.
Is the goal to be in all of
them?
them?
The goal is to be in all of them.
That's incredible. So you started with one, and like how long has it taken you, like how many years has it been to get to now?
This is
13,
our 10th
14
year in ministry.
Wow.
But it takes truly a village of people because we ask that our people serve once a month in the club or cooking, whatever that looks like. And so to be able to go into every single club every single week, you have to have a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
It's
also
a lot of logistics. Listen, it'll make you crazy. Trust me. So, but yeah, because you're trying to make it all happen. And if people can't go, you're trying to find subs.
Sure.
And yeah, it's a lot of logistic and strategic planning. So, but God works that out every single time.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so the women who serve each week, there's kind of 2 roles of serving. You're either going or you're cooking.
That's correct.
Very cool because that hits two groups. Like you have the goers and you have the senders.
Yeah, it's not called. Everybody's not called to go inside, right?
Yeah.
That's just not their thing, not their personality. Sure. We have a lot of older women that love to cook, and we need them.
That's very cool.
We also have a gift team that puts together gifts because some of our clubs cannot take food because they serve food and they want the girls to buy the food that's in the club. So we do gifts and we call them stripper snacks, which they love.
Oh my gosh,
they love the snacks.
And don't they call you the church ladies?
Yeah, we're the church ladies.
And you know, I've translated that like to my daughters. We call the girls that work in childcare at the church the church ladies. I love it.
That's the best.
How do you even? What's the process of even getting in the club?
Just showing up. I know it sounds crazy.
And like the owners let you in? Like the managers?
The first time we went into a club, I think they were just so overwhelmed and shocked that they were coming in with food and just walking in a back door. They're like, We're like, well, we're just here to bring you food. Where's the dressing room? And so they took us.
So you go to the dressing room.
Yeah, we do. We hang out in the dressing room.
Okay.
A night of outreach looks like meeting in a like Aldi's parking lot, spending time together, praying before we go in. We go in the club for 1 hour. We only stay 1 hour because it is their workplace. Okay. We don't want to overstay our welcome. We serve them food. We have conversation. We hope that we can pray with them. I mean, oftentimes it'll be, hey, girls, we're about to leave. How can we pray for you? And we can stand in a circle. Sometimes you don't get to pray at all, but you're planting seeds. So, you know, you hope for that. And then we wrap up and we go back. We close with prayer because sometimes you see things you need to process and pray about. And then you go home. And so we start anywhere from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, depending on what the club asks. The first time we showed up, the club was overwhelmed and so thankful. At the same time, it was so wild. We did that for an entire year. And they said, hey, I own 4 more clubs. Can you consider going in those clubs?
They're asking you to go to the other clubs.
To go into the other
Incredible.
Clubs. So that's just been really God's favor, right? As who would think.
Yeah.
But, you know, we mind our business. We don't overstay our welcome. And they see the girls so much happier after we spend time there because they feel loved.
Yeah.
We know that's how God works, right? They feel loved. They feel seen. They seem valued. And when we leave, they're happy and there's no drama in the clubs.
Yeah. So the manager's like,
come
how
on
often
back.
can you come?
Yes.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, so what is your favorite thing about ministering to women in strip clubs?
Getting to share Jesus with them for the first time. I've actually had a girl that had never heard the name of Jesus before. Never.
Wow.
And that was one of my first years doing this. And that was, she's not in the club anymore. I'd like to share that. But it was just, it shook me because I'm like, what? You've never heard the name of Jesus? Not even in vain, right?
Right.
So that was fascinating. And then the fruit, seeing these girls show up to Bible study, seeing them wanting to learn God's word and the baptisms.
Oh yeah, the baptism.
The baptism.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's the best.
So outside of visiting the clubs once a week, they're a part of Bible studies like at your office, or how does that work? Like if they want to take a step beyond just hanging out and talking to you at the club, what's like the next step for them, I guess?
So we have a Hope House that they come to for counseling, case management, food, hygiene, diapers, wipes.
Oh, wow.
We offer wraparound services that we can give them. If they want to set goals, they might need scholarships, they might need to go back to school. Resume. We also do a transformation program a couple times a year, which is a paid internship where we teach them how to do life through the lens of the gospel. It's very basic.
Oh, wow.
It's only 13 weeks, but we're teaching them how to use a computer, how to build a resume, how to cook, what nutrition looks like. Just very basic things that are often overlooked when you come from a trauma background. And so we want to be able to teach them to equip them to do life on their own.
That's very cool.
It is cool.
How many women, I don't know, I'm sure you track this, but like how many women have been set free from the life in the strip clubs that have come through your program? Do you know?
I can tell you there's 106 total in case management right now.
Wow.
Honestly, a lot of girls, we don't track them all because sometimes it depends on how you track those metrics. Sometimes they come in and it's one and done. You know, sometimes they're in our program for years to come, right? And so they might do the transformation program and then they might be part of Bible study because they've gotten a job and they've gone back to school or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot. I mean, and the counseling
it's never linear,
alone.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's not. And the counseling alone is like every girl that walks through our door, we're going to give them counseling. It's free to them. And so that is where healing begins, is in the counseling room. Yes. And all of our counselors that we use are not only trauma informed, but they are Christian. And so, we don't, like I said, we don't front load the gospel, but we hope the gospel is being shared in the counseling room, which piggybacks with what we're doing as well.
How do girls end up in strip clubs? Like you said this right at the beginning that a lot of people assume that women choose that vocation. but maybe that's not the reality. Like, how does a woman find herself there?
A life of dysfunction. I was just talking to my staff about it. We have a girl right now we're walking alongside. It's probably one of the most heartbreaking stories ever. We've been walking beside her for a minute. Her mom trafficked her at a young age for drugs. She got pregnant at 12.
Oh.
Forced to have an abortion. She got pregnant again at 16. Major drug problem, addiction, all the things. And fast forward today, she's older and she still struggles with addiction and just trying to find normalcy because those broken relationships and, what seems to be a life without hope. She has been part of our program. She has surrendered her life to the Lord, but she continues just to go back and back. And that's heartbreaking because we want God's best for her. But that's God's word to do. We're going to be here for her. We're going to hold her hand. But that story you can copy and paste into almost every girl that walks through our program.
Jeez.
It's so much brokenness.
Yeah.
Foster care, women that have been in and out of foster care, they were being sexually abused, so they chose to just choose a life on the streets and drugs.
So heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Where did this, I feel like I'm going backwards a little bit, but where did the name Hadassah's Hope come from?
Hadassah means compassion, and hope is because of the hope we have in Jesus. But the ultimate story behind Hadassah was Esther. Esther's story in the Bible, she was trafficked. Most people don't know that, but if you go back and reread the story with that lens, she was being sold for sex, basically, and being groomed for the king, right? She's being exploited. So when you go back and reread it with that lens, that story was profound to me. And I actually did that Bible study with my girls many, many years ago, and it was impactful to my life at the time. I mean, my girls were like 12 and 8 at the time. It's funny because you can just see how the Lord had me in a place of preparation even back then, today,
Yeah.
But it's just a really cool story how God used her.
Yeah, I love that.
For a time as this.
I love that. What's the hardest thing about doing strip club ministry?
Stories like the girl I just told you about. I wear it. I have a really hard time putting boundaries in places like that because as a mom, older woman, fixer, I want to fix her so bad. I just want her to know Jesus is so much better, and I just want her to be healed. And that's really hard when you just see the struggle because we know if she can surrender that to the Lord and not isolate and stay in the Word and stay in church and in community, we know God has so much more for her. So that's one of the things. Plus all the distractions of just craziness. Our Hope House had mold last year. We were displaced for 6 months. Trying to do ministry here and there is just hard. And it's all encompassing. Those are the hard things that just, I feel like it's all the time. Yeah. Every time you turn around, it's like, oh, dodging darts. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay.
Sure.
So yeah.
Do you find too, as the founder and, that you carry it differently? I don't know, just as like starting something, do you feel like the weight of it is really heavy on you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this reaches far. It's not about me. It's even about our volunteers. It's about the women that we're reaching. It's about my staff, and it's not like a normal work environment. We're truly out there making disciples, but even as the founder and as the boss, it's shepherding my people too, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
So I feel like a lot of responsibility is on my shoulders, but at the same time, I have to remain in the Word and have my people that is praying for me and supporting me and reminding me the point.
Yeah.
It's all about Jesus. Yeah.
No doubt. Okay. What is your best story from in 10 years? I mean, that's a lot of ministry.
It is a lot.
So if you could pick one of your favorite stories?
Gosh, there's so many. I think one of my favorite stories is a girl that I poured into for probably 3 or 4 years. And, she didn't like me at first. I mean, she didn't like me at all. She was like anti-church.
Are you kind of sassy with them?
Oh,
like,
I'm real sassy
you're
with them.
You're kind of like mom.
Yeah, very mom-like. Yeah. Yeah, very mom-like. And she didn't really care for me. In fact, she called me like a teeny tiny bebopper. And
which is actually an adorable name, but she was like trying to insult you.
Yeah, she was like,
you are a teeny tiny bebopper.
I'm only 4'11", so yeah, I am tiny. So, but it was just funny. She just didn't like me at first, and it just took me just continuing to show up. I would invite her to lunch and coffee. She'd say she'd come, and she would stand me up for 2 years. And then through 2020, we began meeting because obviously strip clubs were closed, and she was in a place where she was instantly, displaced and had no job. So we met, and she surrendered her life to the Lord in March of 2020, and she's walking with the Lord, and she started her own business.
Wow.
She has a cleaning business, and she loves Jesus, and she's constantly, like yesterday's sermon, she was at the church yesterday, and she was like, send me a text. I need to pray more. And the whole what the sermon was about. She's like, I need to pray more. I got to be better about that. And I was like, girl, it's not just you. It's all of us.
Yeah, no doubt. Me too.
I literally told her that. Me too. Yeah, you're right. So we got to be more intentional. But just seeing that fruit and the calling of the Lord just continue to pursue her heart is encouragement to me and to my staff.
Oh, for sure.
And so being able to be a part of that, having girls come to Bible study that God has just shook them. Funny story that I love to tell. One of the girls came to Bible study, and she had come to church the Sunday before. Bible study's on Tuesday, so days before. And she was so convicted over what Pastor Joby said. She's like, I reached in my purse and I grabbed all my stripper money from the week before, and I just said, I got to go give it to the Lord. Got an envelope on the way out. Put all my dirty money in the offering plate. But she was like, I'm never going back.
Wow.
And she actually got baptized last Sunday. So that's really a sweet thing, just being able to be on the front lines, watching what the Lord's doing through these women.
Well, and that first story you told, we live in such an instant gratification world. And trauma happens over years. And so it takes years to undo. So like the 2 years you spent pursuing her, where she's standing you up, like that was her testing you, like, will you keep showing up, or will you leave me like everybody else has left me? And it would be so easy to just stop because it's defeating. And we're not used to waiting and to keep showing up and keep pursuing and keep going after something that seems fruitless. But just the fact that you stayed at it and enough to the point where she's like, okay, I actually think she's going to keep showing up.
Yeah, she means what she says, and she wants to meet me. And that's all of it for our outreach people. Like I tell them all the time, don't give up.
Yeah.
Because everybody in their life has given up on them, or they're takers in their life, whether it's their children or the men in the clubs or whatever. So if we just keep being consistent and a consistent presence, eventually they're going to meet you.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so what do you feel like are the biggest things, maybe 2 to 3 big things that God has taught you through the last 10 years of starting a ministry, doing this specific ministry? Like, what has God taught you?
I think the biggest thing this year has been to remember. It's my next tattoo. So I need it on my hand so I can constantly look at it, but just to remember, because God continues to do stuff and I'm amazed, but how quickly am I to forget the goodness, especially when you're in the thick of it and you're in the hard and you just want to quit. But I can look over my shoulder and just see how the Lord has continued to grow me in my walk with him and to remain in him. And so, and even for all of our people, our staff, like it's hard work. It's not, like you said, it's not instant gratification.
No.
And, it's like these concrete floors, and being able to make a garden out of concrete. It takes years and years of plowing and toiling up that to make it something to where it's going to produce fruit.
Yeah. I heard a sermon illustration, and I'm blanking on who it was, but it was, it could have been Pastor Joby. I'm sure it was, and it was talking about hammering a concrete floor and how you'll see no progress in it. Like you hit it the first time, can't tell.
Nothing.
Hit it the second time, nothing. It takes like over 100 times of swinging the hammer and hitting the concrete until it starts to crack open. And it was this illustration of, we want to see progress and fruit the first time we hit the concrete. But the reality is that's just not how it works. And a heart that is hardened, it takes time to soften. It takes months, maybe years of pursuing and asking God to soften their heart. And so it's such a beautiful thing. And I think there's so much reward then in your heart. Like when you see it happen and you see someone then come to know the Lord, like the story you told, it's almost that much sweeter that it took time. And then because you're like, oh, this is real,
Well, and remembering it's God's work to do, not our work to do, right?
For
and
sure.
trusting him and his timing to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so for the person out there that knows God's called them to start something or maybe serve somewhere that scares them a little bit, what is your challenge or encouragement for them?
Do it. Do it. And trust the Lord. Find your people. Seek out, the people that are going to speak into your life, come alongside of you, and just do it. Do your homework and watch what the Lord does through that and through your obedience, because he It's so much greater than you can even imagine.
Yeah. Did you spend any time before officially launching it? Like, what did the process leading up to that, whether it was in prayer or in seeking wise counsel, like what did that almost preparation process look like before you started it?
It was prayer. It was research. It was seeking out like more about how do I get started? What does this look like? Do I just show up? It was driving around town praying over which club to start first. It was praying on who I wanted to come alongside of me to get it started. Because at the time I was thinking, one and done, one club, never dreamed I'd be 13, so we just don't even think that far. So I think it's just a process. And then for the first 18 months, we weren't even Hadassah's Hope. We were just church people going in there loving on them. Oh, wow. It wasn't until somebody came to me one day and said, hey, you need to make this a nonprofit. And I'm like, oh, what's that mean? I mean, if I knew today what I knew then, I would be paralyzed, right? Because it is so much. Yeah. And so the Lord was gracious, and it was just slow moving and being able to one step at a time, one thing at a time. And the Lord just continued to put people in my path that were way smarter than me, that knew how to run a nonprofit, that paid for me to become a nonprofit. I started the nonprofit without even having a board. So I kind of did things backwards, but God was really gracious in that. It worked out just fine. Yeah. But over time, it's like God was just telling me, put one foot in front of the other. Just be faithful. Just do what I tell you to do. I got you. Yeah. And so just trust the Lord in that. Yeah. But of course, you still have to do your homework. You still have to pray. You have to seek people to help you.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't know that you weren't Hadassah's Hope to start with, which I think that's really encouraging. Like, you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to be a full-blown nonprofit with a name and a logo.
That's scary.
That's a lot. Scary. So you can start just showing up wherever it is that God's calling you. I say. Just do and it. Get a couple people in your life and watch God turn it into something bigger. And I love when outside voices are the ones that tell you, hey, like, this is bigger. Like, you need to make this an official nonprofit, because then it's really genuine. Like, it's not like you're out here trying to make a name for yourself and make this logo and brand and all this stuff, but you're just trying to be faithful to what God's called you to do. And then he chose to put someone in your life to speak more life over you and say, actually, the next step is this. And then it's just such a beautiful thing because your ego's not so tied up in it,
Listen, the Lord will keep you humble in ministry. That's for sure.
That is for sure. Okay, so last question. If people want to get involved with Hadassah's Hope, what can they do?
You can go to our website, which is hadassahshope.com. You can click on Get Involved, and it's easy peasy. Just pick whatever the Lord's calling you to do. Like I said, we need people to pray. We need people to give. We need people to go. You can cook. You can go inside the clubs, and we always need men to serve as security on the outside.
Great plug.
So this is not just a girls' ministry. Yes. We need men to keep us safe that go on the inside.
Tami, final encouragement for people out there, because, like you said at the beginning, girls that work in strip clubs, like this is an overlooked population.
It is.
So final encouragement to just how we can love all people better.
Just be real, be authentic, be transparent, and love people. Love them so much so that it gives them a curiosity that they want to know more. Like, why are you so kind to me? Why do you go out of your way to do this? That they begin to ask those questions.
I love that. I love them so much that it leads them to curiosity. Yeah. It's so good. Well, I can't thank you enough. I'm so always just blown away by what you're doing, and you never stop. Like, you're just go. And I love it. And it challenges me and inspires me to continue pursuing what God's calling me to do. And I love this because the people listening, it's not that they're necessarily called to strip club ministry specifically. Right. They might be, but you're really just an encouragement and wisdom into do whatever he's calling you to do specifically, like that's uniquely you. That's right. And it could be strip clubs. It could be to the financial workers in a bank. Like, that's you just never know who God's calling you to, but you got to keep your ear to the source and know that God's in it, and then just get up and do it.
That's right. We're all called to make disciples, and wherever that's, like you said, the workforce or it's in ministry. Yeah. So just saying yes and showing up and doing it.
I love it. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. We'd love for you to join us in The Neighborhood, our Patreon community. It's a space for the good, the hard, and the hilarious. A place where real life happens. It's $5 a month or any additional amount you choose. You'll get a podcast episode once a week from Caitlin and I, plus additional videos, early access to events and merch, and more fun things we'll do along the way. So come join us by going to patreon.com/neighborspodcast and sign up. We'll see you in the neighborhood. And if you enjoy Neighbors, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review anywhere you listen to the podcast, or subscribe and give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. Sharing is the best way to help our conversations make it into more corners of life. To grab your favorite Neighbors merch or resources, you can head to our website, theneighborspodcast.com. Neighbors is produced by Logger Creative, audio by Taylor Minning, and music by Austin and Lindsay Adamak. See you next time.
Brighter days, new mercies every morning. You never shy away to tell me that you're for me. How could I repay this? Whatever can I do but offer up this life like there's nothing left to lose? I'm living